Muy buenas tardes a todos ustedes. Les damos la más cordial bienvenida a nuestra segunda conferencia de nuestro evento del tercer Bootcamp 2022 de la preparatoria número 2 de la UANL, Desafíos de la Transformación Educativa en la Postpandemia. Para comenzar, me permito presentar a nuestras autoridades universitarias presentes. Nuestra subdirectora académica, la maestra Saray Montoya.
Buenas tardes.
Nuestro subdirector administrativo, el ingeniero Israel Elizondo.
Buenas tardes a todos.
Y también queremos agradecer al equipo de trabajo que está detrás de la logística de nuestros eventos. Para continuar, me permito presentar al ingeniero José Antonio Palacio González, coordinador académico de la preparatoria número 2 de la UANL, quien gracias a su apoyo se hace posible la realización de estos eventos, y a quien le cedemos el micrófono para escuchar su mensaje para esta conferencia magistral.
Pues muy buenas tardes a todos. Doctor Adel, con gusto saludarlo y pues agradecerles a todos, a nuestras autoridades, al señor rector, el doctor Santos Guzmán López, a nuestra secretaria académica, la doctora Emilia Edith Vázquez Farías, asimismo a la maestra, la directora de educación del nivel medio superior de nuestra universidad, la maestra Sandra del Río Muñoz. Saludamos de la misma forma a todos nuestros conferenciantes y ponentes, a la gente que está conectada, docentes y alumnos, y pues público en general. En un marco de un 66 aniversario de nuestra querida preparatoria número 2 de la Universidad Autónoma de Nuevo León, nos complace grandemente en contar con toda esta participación en este evento como parte de estas celebraciones y que con orgullo y satisfacción compartimos con ustedes. Hablando retóricamente, la pregunta es, pues, ¿qué sigue? ¿Qué justifica este tercer bootcamp? Y pensando en una situación emergente que nos explota en el ámbito educacional en el abril del 2020 y que se exacerba en el mes de septiembre del 2021, en donde nos hemos visto obligados a buscar nuevas estrategias acordes a nuestras limitantes culturales y tecnológicas, pues bueno, es de esta manera en que se justifica todas estas acciones de este tercer bootcamp. En este orden de ideas y dando el futuro inmediato que nos espera, surge esta propuesta como una respuesta al apoyo que requiere el docente que enfrenta esta contingencia como una nueva experiencia educativa y que queremos que se convierta en una experiencia acumulativa a su patrimonio formativo docente, en donde nosotros como autoridades somos los corresponsables de llevar a buen término el proceso formativo de nuestros estudiantes. Entonces, amigos, bienvenidos todos y demos inicio a estas jornadas de trabajo que esperamos sean del todo interesantes y provechosas para ustedes y que repercutan en su praxis docente en beneficio de nuestros estudiantes. Entonces, pues adelante y reiniciemos este trabajo. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, ingeniero, por tu emotivo mensaje. Vamos ahora a dar inicio a nuestra segunda conferencia magistral de nuestro tercer bootcamp, dando la más cordial bienvenida al doctor Adel Marzouq Alharbi, con su ponencia Consolidating Digital Learning. What skills does an online blended teacher need to be successful? Les recordamos a nuestros participantes que esta conferencia será impartida en idioma inglés y tendrán la opción de poder escuchar una traducción en vivo al español a través de la aplicación de Zoom. Cedo ahora la palabra a la maestra Sofía Fernández López, quien forma parte de nuestro equipo organizador, para leer una breve semblanza del doctor Adel Marzouq. Adelante, maestra.
Thank you very much. Hello, Dr. Adel. We are very happy to have you here with us today. It's a pleasure for us to have you here again in preparatory number 2. I'm going to read your bio only Of course, you have a very great and very extensive curriculum. I'm going to just read a little paragraph, but I just want to tell you that we are very, very glad that you are here with us. It's a pleasure. And well, let's get started. Dr. Adel Marzouq Alharbi is a PhD holder in applied linguistics, concentrating in vocabulary acquisition. He has also an MA in applied linguistics from Adel Marzouq University in Australia. His core research interest is in vocabulary acquisition, language learning strategies, and vocabulary learning strategies. Dr. Marzouq Alharbi has worked and taught ESL students and built his own ESL program too. Over the past 14 years of his career life, Dr. Marzouq Alharbi has achieved excellent progress both in language learning and teaching. Additionally, he has worked as an ESL teacher and helps students continue their language development. Dr. Adel, thank you so much for accepting the invitation.
Well, thank you so much for this nice introduction from all of you. Is it my time now to start, or you have something to say?
You can
Okay.
go ahead. Doctor.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. All right.
Let's get
Well,
started. Thank you.
Okay, that's a really wonderful, team, and I would like to thank everyone for inviting me to, give a talk and a presentation about digital learning. I think it's the right time to start with this discussion these days, because as we all know that most schools actually have moved to what we call triage mode, and that's actually become an urgency to respond to this pandemic. So I was thinking about the topic and how can we actually focus on both teachers and learners at the same time. So I was thinking about consolidating digital learning because long ago, maybe 10 years ago, we used to have online courses, but during this pandemic, it sounds different for most of us. So today we're going to look at those kind of competencies and other important key points or elements that will help us to get through this digital work, or digital learning as we call it in education. So first of all, can you all see my screen right now? Okay, sounds good. All right, let's get started. So basically, I'm gonna hand in and talk about this presentation. For any questions coming during this presentation, or maybe we will have a 10 minutes question later on. First of all, I would like to wish everybody a happy new year. As we all know, 2022 is already kick in. So I wish everybody a happy start and a very successful year ahead. Now, I'd like to have all of you to introduce yourself, please. If you don't mind, maybe you want to mention your name and talk about, for example, the subject you teach or the subject you're taking right now. Also, you could just introduce a sentence or two about where you are on your online or hybrid learning journey, and what would you like to get from this discussion. So I would like to maybe have those ready, or just introduce yourself for this moment. a little about me, and I think Miss Sophia already presented this, but please feel free to introduce yourself, so you can write in the chat about your what would you like to get from this discussion. So basically, we're trying to look at the outcomes of this basic, for example, presentation, and maybe later on, I would like you to see how those actually fits with what you are actually trying to get from this discussion later on after we're done with this presentation. So this is an overview, as you can all see, of the COVID-19 pandemic in education. And it all started, maybe late 2019. Prior that time, we used to have or see those traditional classes that, we meet with the teachers face to face, and we have this group discussion with the students, or we enjoy the environment with all the students. However, when the pandemic actually outbreak late early 2020, things get very different. And as you can see, most students or teachers used to log in and attend their classes online, and that's actually started, as I said, early 2022. However, right now we could say that we are in the post-pandemic, but some schools, they decided to go back to the time where still, the pandemic is actually rising a little bit. However, most schools are now, considering classes online, face-to-face. So this is actually a kind of a parameter to look at those times prior to the pandemic and the during and post-pandemic. All right, now there is a critical actually question when talking about digital learning. We would like to identify and maybe make sure about the differences between online learning and emergency remote teaching, or as somebody called it, in some research, they call it as a triage mode, because it's an urgency. The school and institution respond to the urgency of this pandemic. So in the article by Hodge and their team, the difference between emergency remote teaching and online learning, they actually found that well-planned online learning experiences are meaningfully different from courses offered online in response to crisis or a disaster, for example, like the COVID-19. So colleges and universities trying to work to maintain instructions during the COVID-19 pandemic, they should actually understand those differences between evaluating this emergency remote teaching. So here I would like to note something very important, is that we have to consider the digital learning or the online instructions that we are dealing with right now, and try to classify it as one of those different setting, for example, distant learning or remote instructions. But I think most of schools right now are trying to consider this as a remote instruction, or maybe distant learning. It depends on the school system itself. All right, now we're gonna look at some kind of statistics about, or let's say background information about the remote instructions from the student's point of view. As you can see here, this is actually from the article Suddenly Online. It's actually a national survey of undergraduate during the COVID-19. And they actually ask some basic questions to those students to see their about their satisfaction with their courses before and after they move to remote instructions. So as you can see here, before, most students usually are very satisfied with their, course or remote instructions, their courses before. However, after, it actually went a little bit, in the middle, between 50%, they actually somewhat satisfied, and maybe around 27% of them kind of, dissatisfied with the remote instructions. Now, there are so many questions about this. Why students' satisfaction went a little bit, plunged to the other, let's say, a very low satisfaction. In the other slides here, we look at the student satisfaction with the quality of various aspects of their online courses, like, for example, understanding what was expected if you, in the course, for example, during the online course, we can see that most of them, like between 52%, were, saying that it's better online. So they actually get to this remote teaching, and they maybe become more adapted to the to this online courses. There are so many details with this survey, but actually I would like to share with you the significant here that shows, for example, the last one over here about opportunities to collaborate with other students on coursework. You can see here that most students were not satisfied with that because, as you know, through online learning, students might have difficulties to collaborate online for so many reasons. We cannot say one reason, but that's actually depends on, for example, the student skills on, collaborate online, or maybe they need more tools to get to the teaching or learning instructions in that course. So basically, the student satisfaction went very, worse to the online course in regard to collaboration activities. And this is actually the last one here I would like to share with you before we get started to the other point. The student satisfaction with the quality of various aspects of their online course. Now, when we are dealing with online courses, we usually think of the quality of that online course. Like, for example, the instructor's preparation. Of course, the instructor has to have a very good preparation to, set up the online course in different, kind of, providing different media and, providing the feedback to the students. All of those actually works as instructors' preparation. As you can see here, around 37% to 39% were very satisfied or somewhat satisfied with the instructor preparations. And this one actually tells us that in regard to instructor preparation, the students are trying to look at what you are presenting to them, whether is it, a synchronous or asynchronous kind of online session. All right, now we're looking at the vision and goals. And that's actually let's start with this kind of digital learning. We're trying to look at some basic questions here, and those questions are very, very important. So for example, why are you starting an online program or school? Now, the question is a kind of, for this moment, we can say that most of us trying to get or move to this emergency or a triage mode to attend the school. But the problem is we're trying to figure out and work with the students to make those as a normal kind of educational setting for them. So for example, the first question is, what problem are you trying to solve? In this case, you're trying to look at, the basic benefit of attending those digital learning or online course, and what are you trying to really work on? Question number two, which students will you be serving? And that's actually basically give you a background information about the student educational background, for example. Also, as a teacher, you have to think about what is your pedagogical philosophy, the way that you want to deliver the course itself. What are those, for example, the self-reflective statement of your beliefs in this teaching mode, for example, in online course. Also, we moved from face-to-face classes to, completely online, and that's actually, have to work on different kind of, mechanism. And in this point, I would like to say that try not to replicate what you do in your face-to-face classroom, and that's actually a bit different kind of setting. Also, we think about what is the most essential for students to learn. Those are some of the objectives for the course that you have to put in front for all of students, so they can actually see the objective of this course that you are trying to present. Another question is, what is the best modality for them to learn the content that you are presenting to them? Are those, for example, asynchronous or synchronous content? Sometimes we are dealing with offline courses, or basically those remotely, as some schools, they actually work remotely to deliver courses in for the student. All right, so here I'd like to share the in the second slide the national the International Association for K-12 Online Learning actually presented 4 competencies framework for online or blended teaching. Those 4 competencies are very, very significant for teachers to have a preparation before they actually start working in digital learning or digital courses. For example, the first one is the mindset, and that's actually look at the new vision of teaching and learning. We're trying to think about the orientation toward change and improvement for the way we see classes, the way we see materials and students in those courses. Number 2, we look at qualities, and that's actually work with some qualities like being transparent and collaborative with students most of the time. And the last 2 actually look at the skills, both adaptive and technical. And here those skills are very significant to build the teachers, kind of knowledge to work on their, for example, development of teaching online. So in the adaptive skills, for example, we're looking at reflection. So teacher has to be reflective. They have to be also continuous, kind of improving themselves. They also have to get the very good communication skills with the others, like with the students, with the families, and other practitioners, like educators and administrative in this context. Under the technical skills, there has to be some development in the instructional strategies, for example, management of blended learning experience. And that's actually something could be new for some teachers, because they might have that, very low with the, working with the blended learning, needs a lot of experiences to deal with the different softwares, different platforms in teaching. All right, now let's look at those in details. So in the mindset, we're trying to look at the core values or beliefs that guides thinking, behaviors, and action that align with goals of educational change and mission. So the first two competencies are trying to look at more like understanding, kind of reinforce those kind of qualities and competencies for teachers. And the adaptive skills and technical skills are kind of, development for teachers to have before they actually start the teaching online. So under the, for example, the technical skills, we're trying to see that there are some skills known and very specific to us and domain, like observable, know how to deal with those technology and mechanism for different platforms. We're trying to acquire and master through instructions and training all the time, because we are dealing with how maybe various systems of teaching online. Now, the most important actually kind of responsibility and kind of standards that teachers need to look at is this is one of the standards that I found very, very helpful for more teachers who are trying to deal with online teaching, for example. And this is actually from the National Standard for Quality. And they actually produced very, very, well studied on this, standard. Number one is a professional responsibility. So teachers have to have this, standard. They have to be ready to be professional and more responsible. They also have to be looking at the digital pedagogy. We're trying to deal with the design of those digital pedagogy for teachers. Standard C, we're trying to look at community building, and that's actually require teachers to have a very good communication with the community around, like students, families, and other educators. Standard D, learner engagement, and I guess this standard very significant to ensure the quality of online teaching. Standard E, we're looking at digital citizenship, then diverse instruction. Standard G is actually assessment and measurement. And we're trying to maybe spend more time on this one because most of teachers are having kind of, maybe they are not sure about the kind of the assessment or the different way to assess students through those online learning. And the last one is actually instructional design. So we're going to look at those 8 standards in a brief in the following slides. Hopefully it will not take too much talking about those standards, but they are very significant. So I think we will need to spend more time to understand those standards to help teachers and students develop a very good awareness in this case. So let's look at the first standard over here, which is standard 8, professional responsibility. In this standard, the online teacher has to demonstrate professional responsibility in keeping with the best practices of online instructions. And that's actually tells us that teacher has to be always responsible to ensure those online instructions are well practiced. For example, some of those sub-standards for the first standard is that online teacher has to meet with the professional teaching standards or has academic credentials in the field in which he or she is teaching. And that's exactly might be a big question for some teachers to think about and get through those standards. And maybe you want to look at them and see how you respond to this standard. In the second standard, which is digital pedagogy, the online teacher is supposed to supports learning and facilitate presence like teachers, social and learner with digital pedagogy. In this case, teacher has to provide those digital teaching tools or to support the learner with those digital courses. Like, for example, in the substandards, the online teachers, for example, they should use digital pedagogical tools, to work with the students remotely in this case, and being more productive, collaborative, and show some analysis, like doing some presentation and research. They have to develop those kind of practices and deliver those digitally to the student. So those are substandards here. Maybe we cannot go through all of those, but actually I hope that we get through each one of those. We will try to give them time to discuss those standards in details. So that's number 2 here. Standard C, which is looking at community building. And here we're trying to see that the teacher has to facilitate interactions and collaborations to build a very good supportive online community with students and families to help ensure that the course objectives and the digital learning went through successfully. For example, under those substandards for the community building, the online teachers should employ learner-centered instructional strategies and current practices that leverage technology for learner collaboration. So here we're trying to let the students do the learning and teaching at the same time, because they have to practice it themselves. Not the teacher-centered method, but the students get through this digital learning by themselves, so they can practice it using with other students, maybe with the teacher himself or herself. Under standard D, learner engagement, I think this is very significant. You think about students sitting behind the desk or behind the device that they are using. But you have to ask a question about the learner themselves. Are they engaged with you? So here we're trying to look at how the online teacher actually promotes learner success through interactions with learners. So they have to interact with them and other stakeholders, for example, by facilitating meaningful learning or learner engagement in learning activities, uh, like practice with them online. Try to give them some assignment they um, do on that session. So they have to be involved in this kind of, learning setting. All right. Standard E, digital citizenship, that's actually look at the online teacher models, guides, and encourages legal, ethical, and safe behavior related to technology use. We all know that we are dealing with kind of, different various students' behaviors. Some of them, might have this, um, you know, kind of illiteracy, let's say in computer, for example, setting. They actually use a computer. Maybe they have low literacy on computer, or they might have some other issues that arise during the session. So here we're trying to build a citizenship or a digital citizenship with the student behaviors and other users online. For example, one of those substandards related to digital citizenship is that the online teacher should facilitate learning experiences that model and promote digital citizenship. We're trying to get this involved with the students and see how they are practice those online um, um, courses. Under standard F, diverse instructions, that is usually we're trying to look at teacher who actually will personalize instructions based on the learner's needs. Maybe I've said this before, that we are trying to look at the learner's uh, needs basically at the beginning. So we have to give them the objectives of the course itself. Like we're trying to ask them what they are trying to get out of this course. For example, what are those objectives? So they have to look at those objectives at the beginning to see that they are, moving with this course successfully. Um, Based on the learner's diverse academic and social and emotional needs. And that's actually tells us to cover those areas and make sure that they are aware of, the teacher are aware of those different, personalities with the other students. So some of them have kind of, objectives to do this online course. They want to move with the higher level maybe. One of those actually substandards that I try to share with you here, that the online structure teacher use data. For example, those data could be qualitative or quantitative. So we can identify learners who need additional support services. So let's say, for example, you have different assessment within your course. Let's say that you have 2 quizzes, okay, and 1 final. Maybe you have an assignments. And if you go through all those kind of assessment and maybe you check those data in the, by the end of the course, you can check those students' progress from the beginning till the end. And with that kind of, responsibility, the teacher can see the differences or the movement or the progress of those students. So here we are trying to deal with the data we have to accommodate those students with their need. So we can give them maybe more assignments, or maybe we can ask them to check their responses or answers. We are trying to get those on track. At least they can meet the objectives of the course. In the seventh standard, which is assessment and measurement, and this one I would like to highly, kind of consider, this is one of the most important standard that teachers have to develop a very well, kind of awareness about how to assess students digitally. Maybe you used to do those kind of assessment in face-to-face classes, like, you grade your students and give them some A, or whatever corrections you made for their writing courses, or maybe you have maybe that kind of style in the previous time. However, doing those assessment digitally needs some kind of skills for teachers to have. So for example, the online teacher has to create and implement assessment in online learning environment. And that's actually should be clear to all students. Like, for example, from the beginning of the course, you have to provide those students with the assessment, let's say, overview schedule that you would like to go through. Maybe you have quizzes, maybe you have short assignments, maybe group assignment, and other like final exams. So here, under the standard G, which is assessment and measurement, the online teacher, for example, choose appropriate assessment tools. So for example, if you are dealing with speaking skills, so we have to provide the students with some sort of assessment that fits with this speaking criteria. For example, speaking proficiency criteria to meet those course objectives. This will allow students the opportunity to demonstrate mastery of that content. As I said, for example, if you are dealing with writing courses, perhaps you would like to see their writing outcomes in this course. So that basically has to be very detailed with the students, kind of, after the end of the course, you will have more clear picture of those students' outcomes and productivity in this course. Also, the online teacher has to evaluate a learner readiness and progress using formative and summative assessment, and that actually include learner feedback throughout the course. Perhaps you want to give them a survey at the end of the course as a kind of assessment to what you are doing in that digital course. So here I actually recommend that every teacher spend time with this standard. Maybe it's very crucial to have it ready for all your students. In the last standard here, we're looking at instructional design, and that's actually tells us the online teacher has to create instructional materials, tools, and strategies. We are trying to look at teachers to provide those digital content and digital media to supply the course requirements. We're not trying to deal with only, for example, pictures or text or maybe some articles, but also we try to compose those with different kind of tools and materials. It depends on the course itself. So here, for example, under the standard H, For example, this substandard here, it says the online teacher used a formative approach to lesson design. This actually gives us more clear picture about the design of the course itself. Also, the online teacher has to design learning experiences that use technology to efficiently engage learners. And this actually moves us from more a technological side. And this is actually the last standard here. And as you can see, each one of those standard has substandard included. Because of the time here, very limited, I'm just spending some time to go over those 8 standard. And we will actually look at the second version, which is this in the next slide here. As you can see here, the second version of the national standard for quality online teaching, it's actually built 11 standards here. And they are more likely talk about the same 8 standard we discussed before, but those extra standard here are, for example, like the teacher arrange media and content to help students and teacher transfer knowledge. So here we're trying to look at more effective online teaching and more, rigid details with those instructions. Also, the online teacher should interact in a professional, effective manner with colleagues, parents, and other members of the community to support a student's success. Here we're trying to deal with a different kind of, members, to help the students get through this digital learning. All right. Another kind of, key elements to look at here when we discuss the skills about for the online teachers who trying to, get or teach online. We're trying to look at the digital content or adaptive software. As you all know, you are working with computers. You are working with different tools and platforms. Those platforms, they might be some of them might be kind of tricky, but you have to build that kind of knowledge about what are those digital content that you're trying to provide to the students, or what are the adaptive software you in your school. Are they using, for example, Blackboard, maybe Microsoft Teams, or other kind of platforms? Maybe you want to get those course content kind of, management and sort them to fit with that educational platform. Also, as a teacher, you have to look at some of those resources, like open educational resources. Maybe your school built the course itself, or maybe your school buy the digital content. So it depends on that kind of, digital content for your course. As we all know, writing an online course is a lot of work, and that's definitely it's a big job. So it needs additional skills. I'm talking about here different skills, like we said before, the adaptive skills and the technical skills, both together to help develop that content or the digital content. Also, think about choosing course materials, like for example, providing students with immersive, free learning experiences through the open educational resources. Students might have this question all the time, like, what kind of resources can I access through online? Some of them think that we are trying to look at only that textbook that we are following. However, as a teacher, maybe you want to go through those open educational resources. I'm not saying here that you should, but it's actually depends on the institution policy in your school. but of course, there must be other windows to look through the digital content in that course, for example. Also, always as a teacher, you should evaluate course materials for how well they function in an online environment. And that actually gives us more time. And maybe you will look at this course again next semester and evaluate that course. What was missing for that course, for example, or how can we improve that course? Also, and this is very significant, the last point here, consider media rich in courseware options for enhancing the learning experience through a variety of course materials. Because we are dealing with the digital content, we're trying to provide students with short videos, tutorials, whatever actually supply their learning needs. So here, I just want to highlight this point to everyone. All right, now let's get to the second or the other slide. Here, we're talking about technology system. Maybe as a teacher, you want to know what kind of technology available for you as a teacher. Like, for example, what are or what is that learning management system that your school is using? Also, what kind of synchronous tools that you're going to provide for the students, or you're going to use for that course. In this context, maybe you want to see how to operate those tools. Also, we need to look at the student information system. At least we have to have that ready. Just look at those institution policy that you're working with, and how can students contribute with the teacher about their engagement with the course. Also, we're trying to look at the content technology tools. Like, for example, I know that some schools, they use this technology and provide apps for students to supply their digital learning, because not all learning management system provide those apps. So teachers use different apps to support students in their learning. So here you want to know about those apps. For example, I know, my kid school, they use different app to provide, for example, a rich media for the students and supply them with enriched, teaching digitally. Like I said before, here you want to consider media rich and courseware option for enhancing the learning experience for the throughout the variety of course materials. One of the obstacles that actually teachers usually kind of confront here is that how well they are trained to deal with technology. But here we're not trying to talk about just only teachers, we're trying to talk about the administrative, families and students as well. So all together, they have to get this awareness and build a very good knowledge about using those technology in that kind of course. Here, I would like to share with you a quote actually from the national survey from this article, Every Learner, Everywhere. They said that when making technology decisions, you have to think about, consider whether the tool will be easy to use, or if that will create unnecessary stress for you or your students. So here we are dealing with a new literacy. It's not just computer literacy, but it's actually more about the digital learning. We're thinking about, for example, I would like to pose a question for my students, for example, A or X. Maybe I want to check with him, because I remember last semester, which has just finished, couple of weeks ago, I was working with assessing and grading my student, and I found out that there is a kind of missing students with their kind of assessment were not fully finished. Then I checked that Microsoft Teams, because I usually ask them to submit their assignment through Microsoft Teams. Now, I'd like to give you here a trick that I used in my case. At the beginning of the semester, I asked my students to submit their assignment through Microsoft Teams, because I can track their student number, and also I can track the time they submit those assignments. So here I came to this kind of, dealing with the students were kind of, a very good example here. I checked him on Microsoft Teams, and I put his number after, you put that abbreviation for the school. And I checked his assignments, and I actually went through all of those communications between me and him, because I usually ask them, please, when you send your assignment, confirm sending that to me, so I can see that he sent that to me through that app, for example. But of course, I have to also check that this app is actually approved by the institution that I'm working with. Also, you might see that some students, they have kind of, technological issues, like, this student says that I don't have a Wi-Fi. So at first I couldn't even get online, but then my phone company chose to give out free unlimited data. So then I could participate in class again. So here you would like to monitor that progress for that students, for example. Maybe you would think that they didn't participate. Where are they? But there are some technology issues that they couldn't attend, for example. They couldn't participate. Their internet is not that good. So here we are dealing with some issues regarding technology. I hope that is clear about technology. Finally, here we're looking at support. Of course, each one of us needs the support. And here we're try to look at community involved in our digital learning. By the way, Ms. Sophie, are we good with the time?
Yeah, Dr. Adel. Well, in fact, we are running out of time a little bit.
Okay. Actually, I'm done. This is the last one,
yeah,
I think.
Because
sorry.
Yeah, the workshop will start at 3. But don't worry, doctor. Just go ahead and finish.
Actually, this is the last ones. Yeah, sorry about it.
Quite interesting. This is really quite interesting. I don't want to interrupt you, so just go ahead, and yeah, and then we close the talk.
Okay, so this is actually the last kind of key elements that we need to get everybody involved. For example, you need to buy in, for example, from your community on what you are planning to create, for example, such as what are the educator or family and students' concern and fear. Sorry. So here, maybe you would like to hear from educator or family about the most concerns things to them in regard to digital learning. Maybe they will talk to you about some, like we said, technological issues. Also, you need to invite them into the program process. Like, for example, you might have that kind of orientation course, or in the middle of the semester, you want to involve them with this kind of, orientation about how the educational platforms that the school is working with, and they can have like a Q&A questions all through the orientation, so they can see how that school working with this for example, different education platform. Also, we need to keep communication ongoing to educators, families, and students. We want them to be involved. We want to hear from them, and also we want them to hear from us. We would like also to check on students regularly, because it's not always about the content of the course. Okay, that actually brings us to a very big question. How are they dealing with that course? What is their progress in that course? How they are actually maintain that progress for that specific course? Of course, finally, both families and students will need to be trained. Here we are trying to engage them all together. And here is actually my references for these slides. Most of them actually are from very interesting, educational website, and I recommend all of you to look at them. Maybe we will share those later on. Thank you so much, and that's actually the end of the presentation. And sorry if I, take more longer time.
No.
Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Adel, thank you so much for this amazing presentation. We are here, I'm here with Professor Sarai Montoya, and we are in shock. I'm
really?
gonna turn on my camera. Yeah, so here we are with Professor Sarai.
Yes.
And your presentation is quite interesting. We are taking notes. Of course, 1 hour is not enough. Of course,
Yes.
we want you to have a longer presentation. I don't know if you can join us later in another workshop or talk for teachers. We need to have all this information. It's extremely important. I don't know if you can share with us your presentation, Doctor. Is it possible?
Yes. You mean later today or the other day?
Yeah, it can be later if it's possible, to share the information with
yes,
the
of
teachers.
course. I'll be.
Thank you so
Definitely.
much. There are questions, there are comments. There is a lot of interactions. Everybody says congratulations. So Dr. Adel, it's a pleasure. And
Thank you.
Also want to say to the rest of the audience that Dr. Adel is going to give a workshop tomorrow. Okay, so we're going to have Dr. Adel 2 days. Okay,
all right.
So if you want to see Dr. Adel a little bit more, please join us. Well, join him tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, I'll be glad.
Dr. Adel, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this presentation.
Right.
It's an honor, and we are really amazed.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Queremos agradecer la participación del doctor Adel Marzouq a nuestra segunda conferencia magistral del evento. Se facilitará el contacto del doctor para que puedan hacerle llegar sus preguntas y comentarios que quedaron pendientes, así como la presentación que nos ha compartido para que puedan consultarla. Antes de terminar, les recordamos que la liga de asistencia ya se encuentra en el chat de la sesión y aprovechamos para extenderles la invitación para integrarse en nuestros respectivos talleres que se imparten de 3 a 5 de la tarde el día de hoy. Agradecemos la participación de todos ustedes, nuestros oyentes, y por el momento damos por terminada nuestra segunda conferencia. Buenas tardes a todas y todos.